Welcome back to our deep dive into Australia's most underrated rock bands. In part 1, we dug into cult heroes and forgotten legends, but we barely scratched the surface. Behind the country's global giants lies another wave of acts who packed pubs, ruled stereos, and shaped Aussie rock culture without ever getting their full credit. These are 10 more underrated Australian rock bands that absolutely deserve your attention. Now, Skyhooks didn't just write songs. They rewired what Australian rock could talk about. Formed in Melbourne in the early 70s, they mixed glam attitude with sharp social commentary, taking aim at suburbia, sex, and boredom with a smirk. Albums like Living in the 70s and Ego is Not a Dirty Word sounded fearless and completely local, at a time when many bands still tried to copy British or American trends. What I love about Skyhooks is how instantly recognizable they are. Those outrageous outfits, slippery bass lines, and cheeky lyrics made them both controversial and addictive. They were banned on radio, blasted by critics, and still managed to become heroes to a generation of misfits. Outside Australia, though, they remain a cult curiosity at best. If you want to understand how wild and witty Aussie rock could be, Skyhooks are essential listening. They captured the feeling of being young, restless, and stuck in the suburbs better than almost anyone. Then there's Rose Tattoo, a band that always sounded like the roughest pub on the toughest street in Sydney. Formed in the mid-70s, they hammered blues, boogie, and hard rock into something brutally simple and incredibly powerful, with Angry Anderson's growl out front and slide guitar slicing through the dicks. Songs like Bad Boy for Love and Rock and Roll Outlaw felt built for bar fights and late-night highways. This band is highly respected by other rock legends. AC/DC, Guns N' Roses, and countless metal bands have sung their praises. Yet Rose Tattoo never became a mainstream name outside Europe and Australia. Their riffs are massive, the grooves are unstoppable, and there's zero pretense in what they do. It's just hard, honest rock and roll from the wrong side of town, played like their lives depended on it. If your idea of perfection is a sweaty bar, a loud band, and zero nonsense, Rose Tattoo are your band. The Church are one of those bands you think you know because of one song, but their catalog goes far deeper. Formed in Sydney in 1980, they blended jangly guitars, dreamlike textures, and cryptic lyrics into a sound that felt timeless. Under the Milky Way became a worldwide hit, but albums like Starfish, Heyday, and Priest is Aura prove they were never a one-song band. What I love about The Church is the mood they create. Steve Kilby's voice and those chiming guitars make every track feel like a late-night drive-through. Empty streets. Wish I knew what you were looking. They were too atmospheric to fit neatly into pop radio, yet too melodic to be dismissed as alternative obscurities. Decades later, they're still releasing strong records and touring, mostly celebrated by diehard fans while the wider world forgets how special they really are. If you only know the big single, diving into their deeper cuts is like discovering a whole new universe of sound. Ever wondered who truly laid the foundations of Australian rock? Billy Thorpe should be mentioned every time that conversation comes up. Starting in the 60s with Billy Thorpe and the Aztecs, he evolved from pop idol to heavy blues-soaked powerhouse. By the early 70s, gigs like Sunbury proved he could command huge crowds with volume, grit, and massive riffs. Tracks like Most People I Know, Think That I'm Crazy, captured that rebellious energy perfectly. It is incredible how often his name gets left out of international conversations. In Australia, he's a legend, but outside the country, he's barely a footnote, despite influencing generations of local rockers. His voice was huge, his stage presence even bigger, and he helped shape the entire pub rock attitude. If you care about where Aussie hard rock really came from, you can't skip Billy Thorpe. Crank up those live recordings and you can almost smell the beer, dust, and amplifier smoke rising off the stage. You know, Sherbet might not get mentioned as often as some of their peers today, but in the 70s, they were everywhere. Formed in Sydney, they blended pop, rock, and a touch of soul into radio-ready songs that still hold up. How's That became a huge hit, even charting internationally, yet many people today barely know the band behind it. I don't know about you, but what I like about Sherbet is how effortlessly they delivered big choruses without losing musicality. Daryl Braithwaite's vocals were smooth, but never dull, and the band could shift from glossy singles to surprisingly rich album tracks. They may not have had the dangerous image of some pub rock acts, but they helped define what mainstream Australian rock sounded like in their era. In the grand history books, Sherbet deserve far more credit than they usually get. Revisiting their records now is like opening a time capsule filled with sun-soaked hooks and big, heartfelt choruses. Goanna were one of the few bands willing to mix rock music with direct social commentary and still land on the charts. Formed in Geelong, they're best known for Solid Rock, a powerful song about Indigenous land rights that still feels relevant decades later. Their blend of folk, rock, and didgeridoo made them stand out instantly. What moves me most about Goanna is their sincerity. They weren't using politics as a gimmick. They were genuinely trying to say something important through music. At the same time, their melodies were strong enough to stick with you long after the message sank in. They never racked up a huge catalog of hits, but the work they did left a deep mark on Australian culture. If you want heart and conscience in your rock, Goanna deliver both. Their music proves that rock can challenge you to think while still giving you melodies you'll hum for days. Here's something wild about the Radiators. Their debut album, Feel the Heat, went gold before release, a rare achievement for an Australian rock band. It showed how strong the buzz already was, built on word of mouth, relentless touring, and pub rock shows that turned casual listeners into loyal fans. It's now a tragedy. Oh, you can work it if you want to. For a young band in 1980, hitting gold on pre-orders wasn't just impressive, it proved they were already a force on the national circuit. They formed in Sydney in 1978 and built their reputation the hard way. Night after night in sweaty pubs, winning over crowds with loud straight-ahead rock, songs like Comin' Home and No Tragedy captured that crackling live energy. What I love is how unpretentious they were. There's no gloss or big concept, just crunchy guitars, big choruses, and a band clearly having fun. They never became famous outside Australia, but for many fans, the Radiators became the soundtrack to wild nights and long drives home.
Don't worry, it's alright. I'll be coming home to see you tonight. Too many times, too many times. Too many times, too many times.
Let's move on to the band Mental as Anything. Brought a quirky art school edge to Australian rock. Formed in Sydney in the mid-70s, They mixed pop smarts with offbeat humor and instantly memorable hooks. Songs like Lift It Up, Too Many Times, and If You Leave Me, Can I Come Too? Proved they could be funny, catchy, and musically sharp all at once. What I've always enjoyed is how relaxed and natural their songs feel. They sounded like a group of friends having a laugh, yet underneath the jokes were clever arrangements and strong songwriting. They had international flashes of success, but they're rarely given the same respect as more serious bands. In reality, Mental as Anything wrote some of the most enduring feel-good songs in the Australian songbook, and they absolutely belong on any list of underrated greats. Spend an afternoon with their albums and you'll realize just how many of their tunes have quietly become part of everyday life. The next band I want to shine a light on is Powderfinger. They were the soundtrack to an entire era of Australian life, yet they never truly broke through overseas. Formed in Brisbane in the late 80s, they evolved from grungy beginnings into a finely tuned rock band with enormous hooks and real emotional weight. Albums like Internationalist, Odyssey No. 5, and Vulture Street delivered hit after hit at home. Songs such as My Happiness and These Days still feel like modern classics. What I really appreciate is how human they sounded. Bernard Fanning's voice carried both vulnerability and power, and the band knew exactly when to lean into subtlety or crank things up. They sold out arenas across Australia, yet in North America and Europe they remain a hidden gem. For listeners who love thoughtful, melodic rock with heart, Powderfinger are an absolute must. If you grew up in Australia in the late 90s or early 2000s, there's a good chance their songs are stitched into your memories.